Hello and welcome to TBM Presents. I'm Jordan.
I'm Jason.
I'm Jackson.
So I bet you're wondering why we gathered you here today. And it's to talk about something that's near and dear to all three of our hearts. I am talking about Mr. The Batman. Now, if you're unfamiliar, you're not. You know who Batman is. You've seen Batman in many forms, played by a bunch of different actors, both real life and animated. But to kick off this conversation, I'm going to pose a question to my co-host here first. But I want you, the listener, to think about this as well. So, Jason, Jackson, I want you both to close your eyes. And I'm just assuming that Jackson did it and Jason didn't.
This is correct.
I want you both to close your eyes and picture Batman. Just like the first image that comes to mind of Batman. Jason, which version of Batman is it? Like when you just think of the character, what's the first one that comes to mind?
I mean, when I think of him, I think of I think it's the 80s, where he's wearing the blue and gray costume with the yellow bat symbol.
Ah, the classic.
When I think of Batman, off the top of my head, he is wearing blue.
But you are thinking of like a comic iteration more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I believe it's the same costume that he wore in the cartoon Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
Jackson,
what's the first version that comes to mind for you?
for me, it's the Arkham series Batman.
Why do you think that is? Because I think that's not the answer for most people.
Well, obviously, I play a lot of video games.
Oh, really?
But that's, yeah. The Arkham games, the first one came out, 2009?
That sounds right. I'm not Googling anything.
And that's yeah. So, the Arkham games have kind of been a part of, my gaming history from the beginning. And I've played every single one of them and loved every single one of them. Even almost called it Batman Begins, Batman Arkham Origins, even that one, which I played on the Wii U. They've always been there. I've replayed all of them at least 3 times, with the exception of Origins, which I've played once. So it's just usually the first thing I think of when there's Batman because of that.
I think for me, when I picture Batman, just think about the character as a whole, there's one of two images that comes to mind immediately. And they are both from Batman the Animated Series, the early 90s to mid 90s show. And it's always specifically the image of Batman up on the rooftops, cape blowing in the breeze, and he's just looking all menacing. And then there's another image, it's a poster that was the cover of the DVD box set of the animated series, where it's just a shadowy silhouette of Batman pulling the cape over his face. And it's just this it doesn't even really look that much like Batman. It's just a scary guy dressed in all black. But for some reason, even though I don't think the animated series is my favorite iteration of Batman, that's always where my mind goes with the character first. And I think it's probably because that was my first exposure to him, because I was born in 1994, so I was a little bit too young to really experience it at the time, but it was still going until I was 4 or 5 years old. So that's the point where I would have first started paying attention to a cartoon like that. And I don't think that Batman as a character would be anywhere near as big today if it wasn't for that show, because that show was huge. And it's one of the best animated series of all time, but it really set a course for all Batman stuff going forward. But really, I think it's your answer that's most interesting to me, though, Jason.
I think it's because it's the design that he had in the New Adventures of Batman and the Super Friends stuff. I looked it up. It's actually more from the 40s is when that design first appeared. But I think of it on the 80s Batman, that's the Silver Age, which is basically when he started wearing the black cape instead of the blue.
That was when you definitely saw the transformation to the character as we know him today. Like, he wasn't nearly as edgy as he is now, but, like, was definitely getting sterner, darker, more closed off. Like all good superheroes should be.
It's when he got lonelier.
Yeah. It's also interesting you said the games, though, Jackson, because I also have this, like, I have this very, very clear image, and I might tweet it, like, when the episode goes out or something, but it's not just the cover of Batman Arkham Asylum. It's the, like, Game of the Year version of the Arkham Asylum case. And I have this very clear image of Batman just standing there all imposing, but in, like, a big circle around him, there's all of these, like, dumb logos, like, won this award, and includes this free DLC. And it's, like, a really busy and ugly case, but it just has Batman standing in the middle of it all, like the original case of the game did. And for some reason, that's also, like, an image that I always go to. I don't really know why, though, because I don't think I ever owned that copy of the game.
I'm still really confused with the marketing when Arkham City came out, and it was all about, like, these very stark colors. Like, everyone was wearing all white.
Yeah.
And it was, like, blood or Joker. I don't remember. Sometimes it was blue, sometimes red, sometimes it was green.
Like, one of the specific images of the Arkham series that I usually think of is the Arkham City cover, where it's Batman on top of the gargoyle and, like, everything's in black and white except the blood on his fist. That one, like, is one that I keep thinking about a lot, which is interesting because I hate the whole underwear on the superhero, like, outfit thing. That stuff was, like, by the time I was into superheroes, that stuff, they were trying to get that out of there as fast as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Batman's kind of weird. Like, I don't really care with Batman having the underwear on the outside.
I think it's not nearly as bad because he's wearing muted colors.
Yeah, it's more noticeable with Superman, where he has, bright red underwear.
Yeah.
Now, I guess that's something with the three of us specifically, is I feel like we're all three pretty big fans of Batman and the whole Bat family, but we're all three pretty skeptical about Superman as a character. Like, I don't know that I've ever really, really enjoyed any Superman anything. Like,
I think it's hard to make a compelling story about, like, a person who can do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think Superman's most interesting when he doesn't have his powers. Like, my go-to Superman anything in my brain, for some reason, is an episode of the Justice League Unlimited, where I think it's based on whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, or maybe it's based on... I don't remember exactly. The episode's called, like, The Man Who Has Everything, or something really similar like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like Mongol attaches some kind of weird plant to him that makes him think that he's still on Krypton.
Yeah.
And it's all about Wonder Woman and Batman trying to free him, basically.
I think that's actually from the original Justice League show, not Justice League Unlimited. I might be wrong about that.
I know it's based on an Alan Moore story. And I do think that's interesting, because Alan Moore wrote some really interesting stuff about, like, deconstructing a lot of superheroes, but I really can't think of anything that Alan Moore did with Batman.
Speaking of the animated Justice League show, that Batman is also one that comes back to me a lot, because randomly at one point when I was really young...
Isn't that just the Batman from the animated series?
It is.
I think pretty much. I mean, I don't think it's like a continuation of the show or anything.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I think it actually is canon with, because I think
nice.
just
it's the
about
same writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think just about everything that ran through the 90s into, like, the mid-aughts is technically part of the same universe as far as, like, animated Justice League related stuff goes.
Yeah, the DC animated universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The animated, like, cartoon Batmans are also one I look back to a lot. I don't really look back to, like, the animated movie ones, like the recent stuff. So I never really got into those, but, like, the old Justice League cartoon, Justice League Unlimited, like, I watched those a lot as a kid on Netflix. Another big one that I never really watched until I was, like, 14 or so was The Batman. Not the Batman the movie, The Batman the show.
I like the Batman for a lot of things that it did. I absolutely hate what the Batman did to Mr. Freeze, because that was the first animated series after, like, Batman the Animated Series ended, and that's where Mr. Freeze's, like, super sad backstory was added, like, about his wife being cryogenically frozen because she has a horrible disease. And then when they made the Batman and they included Mr. Freeze, he's just a bank robber.
Yeah, which, like, I think his design was interesting. It was a little too edgy, but, like, yeah. But, like, I don't really remember much about the Batman for some reason. But, like, it's still always one of the Batman shows that comes back to me a lot. I'm not really sure why.
I actually did more research and figured out the costume that I originally said was from the 80s and then said was from the 40s. I found the version that I was 100% thinking of, and it's from 1999.
A real roller coaster on that one.
Yeah. It was basically, like, not super long after year one, I think. And it's a lot of elements from the year one costume that kind of grounded it, but also went back to having blue instead of black for the cape and cowl.
Doesn't really make a lot of sense as a stealth move.
Yeah, well, neither does Robin wearing bright red and yellow.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a couple other issues that I have with taking a teenage boy into the field in general. I'm looking. I couldn't really picture what Mr. Freeze looked like in the Batman show, so I Googled it, and I'm seeing a lot of pictures, like fan art of Giancarlo Esposito as Mr. Freeze. So I don't know if they're like casting rumors or what, but like people are really wanting to see him as Mr. Freeze in the sequel to the new movie, which is interesting because Mr. Freeze would be a very weird choice for that movie.
I was looking back at, like, I looked up, like, just some stuff on the Batman show, and, like, I forgot, like, a lot of the character designs in this were very cool. Like, Batman himself, I don't think it was really ever that, like, common and everything, but in this he has, like, the gigantic cape that can basically, like, cover his whole body and, like, trails on the floor a lot, which I think they did, like, a few times, but, like, they did that with this one. Joker was basically, like, still wearing, like, in Arkham Asylum, like, prisoner uniform.
He was also voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, I'm pretty sure. Very good. If we're still talking about the Batman.
Yeah, I, like, just all around, I remember that just being, like, a really cool show when I watched it.
I didn't like it very much when it was airing. I did watch it not super long ago, and it holds up better than I thought.
Yeah, I feel like it got kind of, like, I didn't really like how it got near the end of the show, because, like, the show starts out basically, like, just Batman, and you got Alfred, but, like, towards the end of the show, like, you got Robin and Batgirl in there, which, like, that's fine, but you also then eventually just get into, like, having the entire Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a natural evolution.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mind it. The series of Batman I really, really like was Batman Beyond. The series where it was about a new Batman taking over in the future, which, based on when the show came out, probably it could be the past by now.
I think it had like a Mega Man style thing where it's like it took place in 20XX or something like that. Like,
well, it couldn't be too far in the future because Batman's still alive.
Bruce Wayne is still alive in Batman Beyond, so it's not like the far, far future.
And I really think that the first episode of that is incredible because it starts by showing... Actually, now I can't remember if it's the first episode or if I'm just remembering like a flashback. But I remember this really good scene. Bruce Wayne wearing the new Batman Beyond costume, which was basically all black except for the face and the bat symbol, which is very weird.
It's like a black jumpsuit.
It's a very striking design, but it would look very weird in real life.
Yeah.
And it's in Arkham City,
and it looks real weird then.
Yeah. And when they brought it to Arkham Knight, they were just like, oh, let's just do a whole different thing based on it.
It's like a suit of armor now.
Yeah.
But it's the scene of him in the very beginning where he's fighting criminals and they actually manage to get the upper hand on him. And he picks up one of their guns and threatens them. And like there's this really cool scene, and it's what you're seeing is like Batman, like, or Bruce Wayne realizing like he can't be Batman anymore. And it's all just because he got to the point where he had to pick up a gun to actually handle a fight. And he doesn't fire the gun or anything. But I do think that's like one of the most memorable scenes in probably the whole DC animated universe for me. It's such a really good way to start out like a new series of showing like why we needed a new Batman. Like, I don't know. I really like Batman Beyond. I don't know if you guys have really watched it, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
it was excellent. I watched a ton of it when it was still.
It is my favorite Spider-Man series of all time.
Yeah.
I never really watched like the entire show, but I saw a few episodes and stuff, and like it is very good.
It's funny because around the same time, Spider-Man tried to pull something similar, where Spider-Man went into an alternate dimension where, like, he had nanomachines that comprised his suit and stuff like that. And that show
Yeah.
is not very good. Spider-Man Unlimited is bad,
Oh, Spider-Man Unlimited, yeah.
but Batman Beyond is incredible.
Now, we talked a lot about the series, of course, but we would obviously be missing out to not talk about the Batman live action movies because that's sort of what people really know the character for. And we recently saw the Batman, as a lot of people did, and I've been really interested in this one because I feel like when Batman Begins came out, people were just like, it's fine. And then when Dark Knight came out, everyone was blown away. And then when Dark Knight Rises came out, everyone was like, eh. This is the first time where, like, I've truly seen people, like, really split on a depiction of Batman. Like, I think most people have been pretty positive, but there have been people that just hated this movie. And, like, that feels crazy to me. Because I'm not saying it's the best Batman there's ever been, but I loved the Batman. Like,
I'll say this is the most distilled Batman there's ever been.
yes, that's a really good way to put it. Like,
Batman very much taken down to his core components.
yeah. Oh, I thought it.
And making it a year 2 story is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because then you don't even have to worry about Bruce Wayne yet.
Right. Like, this movie was wild, and I thought it was incredible because of it. Like, this is the weirdest Batman movie we've gotten, but in, like, the best possible way.
This is the Batman where you get to watch him put on his eye makeup.
And like you get to see him, like, sulking in dark corners, like, reading bad poetry, being like, I am the darkness, and the darkness is justice, and justice is the city. And, like, oh, it's so
My favorite
good.
thing about
Like,
the Batman, I think, like, thinking back, is that a lot of people in the city think his name is Vengeance.
yeah.
Because whenever people are like, who are you? Or like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm Vengeance.
Vengeance.
Yeah, do you think there's people out there, like, people on the street being like, yo, did you hear what Vengeance did last night? And someone's like, he's Batman, right? Like,
No, I asked him.
he told me directly before he punched my face into the pavement non-fatally 10 times. This is the most aggressive Batman, but he's also like a melodramatic schoolgirl sometimes. I really, really like that movie. I think part of it's I went in with zero expectations. Like, I thought there was a very real possibility it was just going to be straight up garbage. And the reviews were super split. Like, I remember, like, I think GameSpot gave it like a 6 out of 10 and IGN gave it a 10 out of 10.
The duality of man.
Yeah. I do hope we get more movies with this depiction of Batman. I also hope they don't, I hope they just let him be Batman for a while. I don't necessarily want the Justice League yet. I also think that superpowers don't really lend themselves very well to that depiction of Gotham, which I think was surprisingly
I think
good.
a big problem with Batman is that superpowers don't really lend themselves to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like, we don't need superpowers in Gotham City. There's a mob boss in charge of literally everything. And when that mob boss goes away, somehow there are more mob bosses that are more powerful.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if they were more powerful, why weren't they in charge to begin with? But we don't care about that.
That mob boss has a lot of money. I get that. That mob boss over there has almost as much money and can shoot ice. Like, why is he not the one in charge? Speaking of Batman villains, there's many of them. Are there any, like...
Once again, the good Batman villains are the ones that have no superpowers.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I think there are great villains with superpowers, like Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze, but like all the best ones are the ones that are just like some dude.
I guess I kind of draw the line around somewhere around Bane, where I think Bane is a really good
Yes.
like supervillain to go against Batman. But he's not like, I mean, he does have super strength, so
Right.
it is like a superpower, but at the end of the day, he's just a drug addict, so it's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like Bane's a really complicated character too, because like we've gotten really, really good super over the top depictions of Bane, and we've also gotten really good, much more like basic depictions of Bane.
Every depiction of Bane, or not every, but like, I just want a movie where Bane is smart and super strong
Yeah.
and also well written. So that's what takes The Dark Knight Rises out of it.
Yeah. Because like sometimes you get Arkham Knight, or not Arkham Knight, but just like the Arkham game series Bane, who's like 8 feet tall and weighs 400 pounds and is like the size of a truck. And then sometimes you have like the animated series version of Bane where he's definitely big, like bigger than like a normal person, but he's not like, you know, a monster.
I like the Lego Batman version where he's just a regular minifig. He's the same size as everyone
That's
else.
how he was in like the Lego Batman game too. He's just a normal size minifigure.
Yeah.
But he's like hunched over a little bit to show that he's strong.
Yeah.
Because that's what strong people do. Yeah. You know, I hadn't thought about this in a very long time, but one villain I think really needs to make a comeback is Phantasm. I don't know that I've seen that character in literally any capacity except Mask of the Phantasm. It's weird that Phantasm hasn't been everywhere, because a lot of people look at that as like the best depiction of Batman across all mediums. I guess I could kind of see the character being a one-trick pony, though. Like, it only really works until you know who the Phantasm is.
My favorite Batman villain, and it's one we've seen in the movies before, multiple times, very different depictions. It's Two-Face. I really, really like Two-Face, mostly because Two-Face only has one interesting story that I really care about, right? Like, Two-Face's origin of just going from being the DA of Gotham City, who's like basically a paragon, and then going insane and completely relying on luck for all your decisions as Two-Face. Like, I think it's a really interesting dichotomy. He's very much a reflection of Batman. I think that Two-Face is a better reflection of Batman than the Joker, personally. And I definitely prefer Two-Face over the Joker. I just wish that there were more interesting Two-Face stories out there, because it very much feels like nothing kind of hits the highs of his origin story.
Yeah, I think that's sort of an unfortunate fact with comic book villains in general, is that, like, if you want to give them these tragic backstories that inform, you know, their look and their powers and really everything about them, once you sort of lay out that origin story and how it ties to the character, you're only really going to see kind of diluted versions of them after that. And I think that that's why the Joker's so popular, because he sidesteps that altogether. Like, he is his own thing, and he's just sort of like chaos as a person and doesn't necessarily have that backstory that people can like even try to relate to.
Yeah, I guess Joker's advantage is any evil plan you can think of, you can be like, oh, Joker did it. Because Joker's whole thing is just like, oh, I want to butt heads with Batman.
Whereas, like, you know, your Two-Faces, you got to think of like motivation and how that actually would make sense for them to do, and like why they would do it and how. And like Joker could be like, well, I made a pie and it blew up an orphanage just cause.
Gotham City decided to take place in the world's largest pizza competition, but sadly the Joker poisoned the pizza. Wah, wah. And you're like, yeah, that seems like something Joker would do.
Yeah, we all just go with it.
Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't. Maybe the Condiment King could also do that same plot, because pizza doesn't really have a
Man,
condiment.
I can't wait till we get a movie with him.
He poisons the pizza with ranch dressing.
I think there was a point in an interview during press for the Batman where Robert Pattinson said that that Condiment King is his favorite Batman villain, which like is pretty good in general, just as a thing to say in an interview, but also just reminds me of how insane the press cycle for the Batman was.
I absolutely love that there was an interview where he just talked about Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. He talked about it with Zoe Kravitz there, and she clearly did not care even a little bit. like it was pretty good stuff. And they like he apparently just kept stealing socks from the set.
Yeah.
He would just take them home with him at the end of the day. Yeah. And then the studio had to be like, hey, stop doing that.
Yeah. And then like there was a whole thing about like Zoe Kravitz drinking milk from a bowl like a cat to get ready for the role. Like,
and I can't complain enough, and this is a spoiler for the Batman, but it's very small. She does not drink milk like a cat in that movie.
She doesn't do it in the movie.
No. So what was the point?
Well, first off,
there wouldn't have been a point if she did do it in the movie.
I don't think she actually did it as anything to do with the movie. I think she did it as a joke one time and was like, well, this could be an anecdote. But also, like, I don't think she did it at all. Like, other than there was, like, GQ or some random magazine or something did a photo shoot with them in costume, and she was drinking milk from a bowl for that. I don't know. Maybe it was going to be in the movie, but...
Cut for time.
Got cut for being awful.
No, cut for time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was too long. The only take they had of it was 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was very important that you saw the whole thing.
There's a whole scene where they like pour one of those like old-timey like milk delivery people glasses into a bowl, and then she drinks it in its entirety like a cat. But Matt Reeves was just like, well, they tell me I can't put the whole thing in the movie, and I'm not about to only do part of it. There was also Paul Dano saying that he had trouble sleeping while playing the Riddler. And before seeing the movie, I was just like, isn't it sad when you do too many riddles and you can't sleep? But then after actually seeing the character, I'm just kind of like, probably still exaggerated, but I guess I get it.
Yeah, I too have issues with insomnia.
Yeah. What he didn't tell you was he just has trouble sleeping in general. It was not impacted by playing that character at all.
He has issues falling asleep every night. He takes melatonin, but while he was filming the movie, he wasn't able to pick up any melatonin. He ran out.
Yeah. I hope that whenever the sequel rolls around, the lead up to it is just as insane.
I want Robert Pattinson to talk about Chrono Trigger now.
Yeah. Hey, there's a sequel coming out, or there's a remake of the sequel coming out. It's bound to happen. I love Batman. Like,
he's a pretty cool dude, I guess.
Yeah. Such a timeless character, too. Like, I feel like we get oversaturated with other heroes so quickly, and like, there's just constantly new Batman content, and it's almost always like, it's not always good, but it's always like tolerable. Whereas like, even as much as I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, I was still kind of glad that like when Iron Man died in Endgame, was like, well, thank God we're not gonna have to see him in every movie for a while.
Yeah, there's an interesting like a lot of similarities between Iron Man and Batman.
Money.
Yeah.
End of list. No, I mean, I think that there is definitely a lot there. This like troubled billionaire that doesn't quite know what to do with themselves, and it manifests as being like trying to do good in a weirdly destructive way. Not even just like self-destructive, just in general destructive.
Any as a butler.
Yeah, that too.
Does Batman have a tornado-themed villain?
Well, there is Red Tornado, but he a good guy, except for when he's not.
I think he originally was not a good guy.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Flanderization of Red Tornado.
Yeah. This just randomly came back to me from like 4 months ago out of the blue. And it was something I really wanted to say on the podcast if we ever did an episode about Spider-Man No Way Home, but we didn't end up doing it. But I really wanted to talk about how I thought it was funny that they like a lot of Ned's screen time in the first two movies was like just making fun of him, like for his looks or his attitude or whatever. But in the third one, they really leaned into this whole magic vibe that also didn't make any sense. And then it hit me about like 3/4 of the way to the movie. They Flanderized Ned.
We should have seen it coming when the second movie was all about Ned gets a girlfriend.
Yeah. Jackson, in case you're unaware, the term Flanderized is referring to Ned Flanders from The Simpsons.
Yeah, but I was thinking that.
Back to Batman, though, for a second. I gotta get you guys' take. What's the best length of ear for a Batman? As you can see, if you look in our Discord chat at the last two images, you can see an example of short ears and an example of very long ears.
I think it can work as either, but it has to be one of the extremes. Like, it has to be either like as long as his head, or it has to be barely visible. There is no good middle ground.
I generally prefer the shorter one.
Yeah, it's definitely less like gaudy and in your face.
What were you saying, Jackson?
I like the long ears. I don't know why. I guess it's just because, the Arkham games is kind of what got me into Batman. And he got the long ears in those, so...
When I think of a good length for the ears on a horrible design, I think of the Nightfall costume, which I think is the robot costume he wore when he got his back broken. Either that, or it's the costume that Azrael wore. But it has very short ears.
No, I'm looking at Batman Nightfall. This is the cover of Volume 3 of the comic, and it's aggressive ears. Like...
I don't know. There's some short-eared costumes.
Oh, wow. Now this is... Why would they do this?
I guess the Dark Knight Returns ears are a good length for me.
What do you look for in ears?
I think if they're really long, they're dumb.
Yeah.
Like, you're just gonna hit those when you're crouching around all over the place.
Like, it can look cool with the costume, but I don't think it's ever practical.
You could put, like, antenna in them.
Yeah.
I guess that would be practical.
The Dark Knight Returns Batman is honestly probably one of my least favorite designs.
I really like it for what it is, right? Like, I think it was weird that they used that design. I think it was weird that they used that design in the DC EU.
Yeah, I don't really like super buff Batman.
I'm just gonna
Jordan is sending pictures of
I'm just gonna tweet
Dark Knight Returns.
I'm gonna tweet all of these with the episode.
No, I like the Dark Knight Returns. I do agree, like, he's a little too bulky. Like, that's just kind of Frank Miller's style.
Yeah.
So you just kind of get used to it. But, like, I really like the wide, tall bat symbol. Like, I like the short ears.
That's actually my least favorite part, the bat symbol. I don't know. I don't really like the giant bat symbol. Like,
it makes more sense
if
it's the most armored piece of the costume to make it very big. That version also beat Superman in a fight, I think.
Good for him.
When Superman was a stooge for the U.S. government.
I think he did have to have, like, a tank and, like, a full, like, suit of armor, too, but yeah.
I've always liked the Batman versus Superman argument because it falls apart in any situation where Batman doesn't have more prep time than Superman does.
It falls apart anytime Batman doesn't have kryptonite.
Yeah, that specifically. But, because it's like...
Everyone's always like prep time for Batman. Batman needs prep time to beat Superman. It's like, no, he just needs kryptonite.
Yeah.
Anybody can beat Superman provided they're, like, adequately strong if they have kryptonite. And they catch him unawares. I think that's a big part of it.
I think the biggest thing is that, like, I know that Superman's not, like, Flash level fast, but he's fast enough that as soon as, like, the decision is made that you're going to fight, you're dead before you can react. Like,
it's weird that they made the Flash so fast because, like, Superman versus the Flash was a big thing back in the day. They were like, oh, they got a race. Who's going to win between Superman and the Flash? In the 90s, we were just like, that's dumb. Flash's whole thing is being fast. We should make him so much faster.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to say, like, if Superman's that fast, then arguably Zod should also be that fast.
True. Which would make him a much bigger problem.
Yeah. You have to make all the Kryptonians that fast. And then you also need to make Brainiac way stronger and faster because, like, how's he going to... I guess that only matters in the ones where he actually, like, attacked Krypton. Sometimes Krypton, they just blow it up themselves.
When you blow up your planet just to be safe. Well,
Yeah, but like if you just start scaling everyone to be Superman levels, then like nobody's going to be able to deal with any of the threats except Superman.
yeah. Which is, I think, one of the biggest problems that like a lot of superhero team ups have in general. Because like Captain America is probably my favorite superhero, but like it really doesn't make a lot of sense for him to be on the same team as like Iron Man and Thor and the Hulk. like he's strong.
I think Iron Man's fine, but like Thor and the Hulk, yeah, absolutely outclassed.
Yeah, been good talking about my good friend Batman all this time. Well, I guess it's time for us to close this one on out and send Batman home to pasture. Is it home to pasture? Is that the saying? On to pasture, something like that. But
I'm Batman.
We appreciate you checking us out. We hope that there will be more TBM Presents in the future. But for the Totally Biased Media Podcast, I'm Jordan Walkup.
I'm Jason Simmons.
And I'm Jackson Walk.
And you just felt the bias.
Do we still say that?
Premium.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.